Shalom, my name is Nahum ben Yisrael, and I want to first start off by giving all thanks, honor, and glory to Yahweh by saying Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Today I'm going to be teaching on tithes and tithing, and the question that I'm going to ask is, can we pay tithes right now, even in captivity? The answer is both yes and no, and I'll explain later on in my lesson what I mean by that. There are two types of tithes that we cannot keep here in America, but there is one type of tithe that we can keep. This teaching on tithes is going to discuss tithes in general and what we can do and can't do regarding it. Now, before I start my lesson, I want to first read the definition of the word tithe. And I got 3 different definitions in the dictionary, and also a definition of tithe on Google. The first definition that I'm going to read, it is going to be this definition. It says the definition for tithe is a tenth part, hence in careless use, any small part, a small tax, originally 1/10 of the produce of land or business, paid for the support of the church. That's one definition of the word tithe. Another definition that I'm going to read, it states a tenth part of one's annual income paid to a church, a tenth part, to pay or give 1/10 of one's income, to levy a tithe on. Another definition I'm going to read out of the dictionary. This one reads, 1/10 of one's income paid to support a church, a tenth part of any small part, any tax, to pay a tithe. And the definition that it gives here on Google, it says 1/10 of annual produce or earnings formerly taken as a tax for the support of the church and clergy, pay or give as a tithe. So those are just multiple different definitions, but when you read all these different definitions, they all pretty much have one thing in common, and that one thing in common that they have is a tenth, paying a tenth. And basically that's what tithe means. It just means a tenth. Now that we got that established, I want to go to the book of Genesis, chapter 28, verses 20 through 22. That's Genesis chapter 28, starting at verse 20, and it reads, And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, If Elohim will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat, and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall Yahweh be my Elohim, and this stone which I have set for a pillar shall be Elohim's house, and of all that thou shalt give me I will surely give the tenth unto thee. Now, let me explain what this is basically all saying from verses 20 through 22. Everything belongs to Yahweh. So if everything belongs to Yahweh, then why would Jacob give Yahweh a tenth, let alone give him anything at all? Jacob was not stupid. He wasn't stupid. He knew that everything in the world belonged to Yahweh, but yet Jacob gave a tenth of what he had to Yahweh anyway. So why would he do this? Well, the answer is in verse 20. Let's read verse 20 again. It says, And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, If Elohim will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on. Yahweh is the one that gives you food and raiment, as well as other things like a house and a job and so on. Yahweh blesses you in lots of different things. If it wasn't for Yahweh, you wouldn't even have a job, let alone food or clothing. Just like if it wasn't for Yahweh, Jacob would not have had any food to eat or any clothes to wear. So Jacob is not only giving back to Yahweh what belongs to him, which is the tenth, or more specifically, silver and gold, as it states in the book of Haggai, chapter 2, verse 8, but he is also doing it out of respect for Yahweh. Jacob is saying that everything that you give me, Yahweh, I am going to give a tenth of it back to you, because if it wasn't for you, I would not have gotten it in the first place. Now tell me that that is not love and respect for Yahweh. But people these days, they want to say it's my money, I earned it, and I shouldn't have to give it to anybody. I should not give a penny of it to anybody, even if it is to Yahweh. So basically, what these verses are saying, specifically verse 20, is Jacob is saying that anything that you give me, Yahweh, whether it be food or clothing or whatever it is, I'm going to give it back to you, Yahweh. I'm going to give more specifically, what Jacob is specifically giving back is a tenth to Yahweh. So whatever Yahweh blesses Jacob with, Jacob's going to give a tenth of that back to Yahweh. Because again, if it wasn't for Yahweh, Jacob would have nothing. Now, I want to go to the book of Haggai, chapter 2, verse 8 real quick and explain what I said about the silver and gold. Everything in the world belongs to Yahweh, specifically silver and gold. So let me go to that just real quick. Everything in the world belongs to Yahweh. All these mansions and, all the stores, the houses, everything, all that belongs to Yahweh. And the reason why I know that belongs to Yahweh is because, where do they get all this material to build these mansions? Where do they get the wood to build these houses? Well, it comes from trees. Who owns the trees? Yahweh. So everything in this world belongs to Him. No matter what you have, car, mansion, clothes, all that belongs to Yahweh. Because if it wasn't for Him, you wouldn't have any of that stuff. So let me go to the book of Haggai. Alright, Haggai chapter 2, verse 8, it reads, "The silver is mine, and the gold is mine, saith Yahweh of hosts." Alright, so I just wanted to point that out, that everything in the world belongs to Yahweh, including silver and gold. I also want to go to the book of Leviticus real quick, and explains that the tenth, which is a tithe, that also belongs to Yahweh as well. The tenth belongs to Yahweh. So let me go to Leviticus real quick and show that. The tenth belongs to Yahweh. It is holy to Yahweh. The tenth is holy. Alright. Leviticus chapter 27, verses 30 to 32. Verse 30 it reads, "And all the tithe of the land, whether of the seed of the land, or of the fruit of the tree, is Yahweh's. It is holy unto Yahweh. And if a man will at all redeem aught of his tithes, he shall add thereto the fifth part thereof. And concerning the tithe of the herd, or of the flock, even of whatsoever passeth under the rod, the tenth shall be holy unto Yahweh." So pretty much all that I'm establishing here is that the tenth belongs to Yahweh. The tenth is holy to Yahweh. So I just wanted to get that across there. Now I'm going to go to the book of Numbers, Numbers chapter 18, verses 21 through 32. And it reads, Numbers chapter 18, verse 21. "And, behold, I have given the children of Levi all the tenth in Israel for an inheritance, for their service which they serve, even the service of the tabernacle of the congregation. Neither must the children of Israel henceforth come nigh the tabernacle of the congregation, lest they bear sin and die. But the Levites shall do the service of the tabernacle of the congregation, and they shall bear their iniquity. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations, that among the children of Israel they have no inheritance. But the tithes of the children of Israel, which they offer as a heave offering unto Yahweh, I have given to the Levites to inherit. Therefore I have said unto them, Among the children of Israel they shall have no inheritance. And Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, Thus speak unto the Levites, and say unto them, When ye take of the children of Israel the tithes which I have given you from them for your inheritance, then ye shall offer up a heave offering of it for Yahweh, even a tenth part of the tithe. And this your heap offering shall be reckoned unto you, as though it were the corn of the threshing floor, and as the fullness of the winepress. Thus ye, thus ye also shall offer a heap offering unto Yahweh of all your tithes, which ye receive of the children of Israel, and ye shall give thereof Yahweh's heap offering to Aaron the priest. Out of all your gifts ye shall offer every heap offering of Yahweh, of all the best thereof, even the hallowed part thereof out of it. Therefore thou shalt say unto them, when ye have heaped the best thereof from it, then it shall be counted unto the Levites as the increase of the threshing floor, and as the increase of the winepress. And ye shall eat it in every place, ye and your households, for it is your reward for your service in the tabernacle of the congregation. And ye shall bear no sin by reason of it, when ye have heaped from it the best of it, neither shall ye pollute the holy things of the children of Israel, lest ye die. So what is all this is saying? Well, just like the Levites, the fatherless, widow, and stranger were the recipients of tithes, just like they were. Or let me say that again. Just like the Levites, the fatherless, the widow, and the stranger, they were all recipients of the tithes. It wasn't just Levites; they weren't the only ones that got tithes. It was, the fatherless, widows, and strangers as well. Some may say, in order for me to pay tithes, my money has to go directly to the hands of a person that is a Levite. In other words, even if you are someone who is collecting tithes and using that money to help fellow Hebrews who are fatherless and widows, because you are not an actual Levite, I should not be paying you the money directly because you are not a Levite yourself. Well, let's just say that that's the case. Let's just say that that's true. Yahweh said that the tenth belongs to him, and he has given the tenth to the Levites. Also, the fatherless and widows are recipients of that tenth. Since Yahweh requires us to pay tithes, and you don't want to give your money to any sanctuary here in America for whatever reason that may be, are you at least taking a tenth of everything you make whenever you make it? Are you at least setting 10% of your earnings aside and using that money to go to someone that is fatherless, or a widow, or a stranger, or helping a homeless Hebrew who is out on the street who could possibly be a Levite? In Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 19, it says, forsake not the Levites. How do you forsake a Levite? Well, I'll tell you how you forsake a Levite. The way you forsake a Levite is by not paying tithes. How do I know that? Because that is what tithes are partially used for. They are meant to go to the Levites because that is their inheritance, as I just read in Numbers chapter 18, verses 21 through 32. Unlike the rest of the children of Israel, the Levites' inheritance included tithes, whereas everybody else inheritance included land. Now, I'm not saying that if you don't pay tithes, but instead, well, let me rephrase that. I am not saying that if you don't pay tithes, but instead set aside 10% of everyone's paycheck that you earn for to be used for the fatherless, widows, and help out your fellow Hebrew brothers and sisters, that by doing this you are keeping the law. But doing this is certainly better than nothing. So I'm not saying that people should not be paying tithes, because you should, but if you at least set 10% of your earnings or your paycheck aside and use that money to help out your fellow Hebrew brothers and sisters who are either homeless or who are either, or fatherless or widows, that's certainly better than not, paying nothing at all, okay? We're all Hebrew brothers and sisters. We're all supposed to be helping each other because that's what Yahweh wants. He wants us to be helpful towards our fellow Hebrew brothers and sisters. But doing this is certainly better than doing nothing, just like I said. We are required to pay tithes because it is not only the law, but the tenth belongs to Yahweh, and he has given that tenth to the Levites. So if you're not going to pay tithes to any Hebrew sanctuary, then at least then at least you should put 10% of every paycheck you earn and use that money to help your fellow Hebrew brothers and sisters, especially when there is a chance that they could be a Levite themselves. Okay. Now I want to go to Deuteronomy chapter 12. And I'm going to read verses 1 through 18. Alright, Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 1. These are the statutes and judgments which ye shall observe to do in the land which Yahweh Elohim of thy fathers giveth thee to possess it all the days that ye live upon the earth. Ye shall utterly destroy all the places wherein the nations which ye shall possess serve their deities, upon the high mountains, and upon the hills, and under every green tree. And ye shall overthrow their altars, and break their pillars, and burn their groves with fire. And ye shall hew down the graven images of their deities, and destroy the names of them out of that place. Ye shall not do so unto Yahweh your Elohim, but unto the place which Yahweh your Elohim shall choose out of all your tribes to put his name there, even unto his habitation shall ye seek, and thither thou shalt come. And thither ye shall bring your burnt offerings, and your sacrifices, and your tithes, and heave offerings of your hand, and your vows, and your freewill offerings, and the firstlings of your herds and of your flocks. And there ye shall eat before Yahweh your Elohim, and ye shall rejoice in all that ye put your hand unto, ye and your households, wherein Yahweh thy Elohim hath blessed thee. Ye shall not do after all the things that we do here this day, every man whatsoever is right in his own eyes. For ye are not as yet come to the rest and to the sacrifice. For ye are not as yet come to the rest and to the inheritance which Yahweh your Elohim giveth you. But when ye go over Jordan and dwell in the land which Yahweh your Elohim giveth you to inherit, and when he giveth you rest from all your enemies round about, so that ye dwell in safety, then there shall be a place which Yahweh your Elohim shall choose to call his name to dwell there. Thither shall ye bring all that I command you, your burnt offerings, and your sacrifices, your tithes, and the heave offerings of your hand, and all your choice vows which ye vow unto Yahweh. And ye shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim, ye and your sons, and your daughters, and your men servants, and your maid servants, and the Levite that is within your gates, for as much as he hath no part nor inheritance with you. Take heed to thyself that thou offer not thy burnt offerings in every place that thou seest, but in the place which Yahweh shall choose in one of thy tribes, there thou shalt offer thy burnt offerings, and there thou shalt do all that I command thee. Notwithstanding thou mayest kill and eat flesh in all thy gates, whatsoever thy soul lusted after, according to the blessing of Yahweh thy Elohim which he hath given thee. The unclean and the clean may eat thereof, as of the roebuck and as of the hart. Only ye shall not eat the blood, ye shall pour it upon the earth as water. Thou mayest not eat within thy gates the tithe of thy corn, or of thy wine, or of thine oil, or the firstlings of thy herds, or of thy flock, nor any of thy vows which thou vowest, nor thy freewill offerings, or heave offering of thy hand. But thou must eat them before Yahweh thy Elohim in the place which Yahweh thy Elohim shall choose, thou, and thy son, and thy daughter, and thy manservant, and thy maidservant, and the Levite that's within thy gates. And thou shalt rejoice before Yahweh thy Elohim, and all that thou puttest thy hands unto. So what is this basically saying? Now, there may be some people that say that we have to pay tithes only in the land, like only in Jerusalem, and not in captivity. Well, in order to prove that, you have to show specifically where in the scriptures where you are not allowed to pay tithes in captivity, or you are only allowed to pay tithes in the land, or in Israel, or in Jerusalem. there is no evidence where we are not allowed to pay one specific type of tithe. Hold on, let me say it again. There is evidence that there is evidence where we are not allowed to pay a certain types of tithes, because there's different types of tithes. You got like the year-to-year tithe and the 3-year tithe and what's called the Levitical tithe. Now there are two types of tithes that we cannot keep here in captivity here in America, and that's the year-to-year tithes and that's the 3-year tithes, and I'm going to prove that. Now, in dealing with the year-to-year tithe, this type of tithe has a restriction, and that restriction is that it must be done in the place that Yahweh has chosen. In verse 6 and 11, it says that you have to bring your tithes in the place which Yahweh shall choose. Does this mean that you can only pay tithes in the land? No. All this is saying is that when we were in our land, which is Jerusalem, Jerusalem was the place where we were supposed to pay our tithes at, but it is not saying that Jerusalem is the only place where you are only allowed to pay tithes at, except for when it comes to the year-to-year tithes and the 3-year tithes. The year-to-year tithes and the 3-year tithes, that has to be done in the land of Israel, more specifically Jerusalem. Those types of tithes cannot be paid anywhere else in the world. Okay, so you can't do those two types of tithes. Now, excuse me. This particular type of the tithe, the year-to-year tithe that I'm discussing, just because it says that we are supposed to bring our tithes into the place that Yahweh chooses, does not mean that we still cannot pay tithes in captivity. If that were the case, then in Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 1, and let's go there, let me read that. Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 1, it reads, now these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which Yahweh your Elohim commanded to teach you, that ye might do them in the land whither ye go to possess it. Now, would this be saying that we can only keep the law in the land and not in captivity? Let me read this verse again. It says, now these are the commandments, the statutes, and judgments which Yahweh your Elohim commanded to teach you, that ye might do them in the land. Notice it didn't say do them in captivity, but we all know they were supposed to keep Yahweh's laws no matter wherever we're at, whether we're in Jerusalem, whether we're in captivity, whether we're in Chicago, Atlanta, Mississippi, New Zealand, Russia. It doesn't matter. We're supposed to keep the law everywhere. But if you read this verse here, it says that you might do them in the land. Well, with wisdom and knowledge and understanding, yeah, we were supposed to do those laws while we were in the land, while we were in Jerusalem. But unfortunately, we got kicked out because we didn't keep the law. And so now we have to keep the law somewhere else, which is here in captivity. Okay? So just because it says, going back to verses, let me see, where is that, I guess? Oh yeah, just because in Deuteronomy chapter 12, just because it says you're supposed to keep tithes, at least this particular type of tithes in the land, doesn't mean you can't keep another type of tithe anywhere else in the world, anywhere else in the country. We can't keep the year-to-year tithes and the 3-year tithes. We can't keep those tithes because that can only be done in the land of Jerusalem. But that's now referring to every single type of tithe there is, which also includes the Levitical tithe. That tithe has no restrictions. We can keep that particular type of tithe. Now, technically, we should not be keeping the law in captivity. We really should be keeping it in the land. But because we sinned against Yahweh for breaking His laws,